Hi everyone! So let's proceed sa ating Unit 2, which is exploring the methods of presenting the art subject. Okay. So artists are considered persons with the talent and the skills to conceptualize and make creative works. So lahat naman tayo artist in our own way kasi lahat tayo creative in our own way. So they have sharp senses which anywhere and everywhere they can just pick out subjects with delighted stories. They see things in different forms but have one vision, and that is to inspire people through their creative works. So, kung maalala niyo yung question ko last time, nung sa activity niyo na describe yourself as an artist. Kasi lahat tayo artists in our own way. Lahat tayo kahit naglalakad tayo with thoughts would come in our mind, and we make up stories, and we tend to inspire people in our own way. So yeah, we are artists. We are all artists in our own ways. Okay, so they try to effectively express or convey more their messages. Thus, this unit introduces you to the methods in which the artist can use in presenting their art subjects, making them more inspiring and stimulating. Okay, so at the end of this session, you will be able to identify and describe the characteristic of different methods of presenting the art subject and research the work of an artist, historical or contemporary, whose works responds to the politics, social mores, or significant local or international events of their time. Okay, so let's proceed to what are the methods in presenting art subject. So number one is realism, or it is called naturalism. Yun yung other term niya. So realism meaning it is accurate, detailed, unembellished depiction of nature or of contemporary life. Meaning, yun talaga yung nangyayari sa ating everyday life. No filter. Parang ganon. So, naturalism or realism attempt to represent subject matter truthfully without artificiality and avoiding speculative fiction or supernatural elements. So, it's not decorated. So, as is. So, it focuses on the real life, the real scenario in our everyday lives. So, one well-known painter of that is our very own Fernando Amorsolo, which is a Filipino painter, and he is known to be the father of Philippine realism. So he is an active painter in the early half of 20th century. So his compositions often depict traditional culture, customs, and celebrations of the Filipino community. So he's known to be he is known for his craftsmanship and mastery in the use of light. Okay. So, one famous painting niya is marami yan, pero itong rice planting ang isa talaga sa nag-boom. So, after returning to Manila, Amorsolo set up a studio and began enormously productive period and using subject matter that he had borrowed from Fabian de la Rosa. So, it is the scenes of rice planting, which is well known ng Pilipinas dyan since yan yung one of our main products dito sa Philippines. And he created a series of paintings that captured the popular imagination. So, his 1922 painting, Rice Planting, soon appeared on calendars, posters, and travel brochures. Next, let's move on to abstraction. So, abstraction naman, it is the opposite of realism or naturalism because abstract art is an art that does not attempt to represent an accurate depiction. So, iniiba niya yung natural na subject. Okay? So, sometimes, abstraction or abstract art, abstract painting, it has no recognizable subject, but it doesn't mean that it is about nothing. Abstract, mahirap mahirap mong malaman kung sinong subject niya, kung ano yung main subject niya, pero it doesn't mean na it has no meaning. Okay? So, abstraction means to separate or withdraw something from something else. So, it is to change. So, sabi nga dito, instead, it uses shapes, colors, forms, and gestural marks to achieve its effect. Okay, so abstraction indicates a departure from reality in depiction of imagery. So, inaalis niya yung realidad. Okay, so sabi nga dito, ang isang well-known painter niya ay si Picasso. So, Picasso is a well-known artist who used abstraction in many of his paintings and sculptures. So, his figures are often simplified, distorted, exaggerated, or geometric. Magkita nyo sa types of abstraction later. So, ito yung isa sa gawa ni Picasso, Girl Before Mirror. So, it was painted in March 1932. So, it was produced in the style of Picasso and was using at the time and evoke an image of vanity. So, kung mapapansin nyo dito sa painting, it is a girl, right? Sabi nga, girl in front of the mirror, girl before a mirror. So, makikita nyo na hindi siya realidad kasi it used shapes and distortion, di ba? Sa mukha, distortion sa kulay, and so on and so forth. So, Picasso shifts the emphasis and creates a very different view of the image. So, the work is considered in terms of the erotic in Picasso's art. And critics in different periods have offered their assessments of the work to show a wide range of reactions. So the girl is looking into the mirror because she's pregnant. Okay? And from the image of the mirror, she sees a lopsided breast and a very big belly or a very fat belly. And the girl looking into the mirror has an angelic face. Nakita niyo naman dito, di ba? Angelic face and ano siya eh, parang okay siya. Pero at the reflection of the mirror, na distort doon, it is somehow dark and it gives this sense of being flawed. So, nangyayari yan sa mga babae, especially sa mga yung hindi talaga na plano yung pregnancy and later mo ma-realize yung mga although pregnancy is a blessing, pero yes, pero may mga times nga naman talaga na you would feel bad about yourself or you feel flawed and yeah, yun yung nangyayari dito, yun yung realidad, yung postpartum nga na sinasabi nila. So the reflection in the mirror is distorted and discolored, possibly representing the woman dislikes herself. So, may mga times na ganun. Kahit nga tayo, kahit nga yung iba, sexy na, yung iba, magaganda na yung skin, yung complexion nila, so on so forth, nagkakaroon pa rin tayo ng insecurity. So, ganun yung nangyayari dito sa Girl Before a Mirror. So, yung girl na yan was named Marie-Therese Walter and was painted multiple times during the 1930s by Picasso. So, tingnan nyo, hindi siya tulad nung naturalism na talagang, kung naturalism yan, ipapakita na kaagad yung mukha, as in, makikita mo na kaagad yung meaning niya, ano ba yung nangyayari. Pero, abstraction, it used shapes, colors, and different things, and you really need to dig in deeper on how to understand it well. Okay, let's move on to the sabi nga dito, abstraction has been presented in different manners, such as distortion. Okay, so distortion is a change, twist, or exaggeration that makes something appear different from the way it really is. So you can distort an image, a thought, or even an idea. So distortion is the alteration of the original shape of something, be it in person or an object. Okay, so one artist is Henry Moore, and sculptures are tangled representations of the human figure, na stretch na distort. Okay, so considering Moore was a war artist, how could you link this to the concept of disorder? So makita nyo dito, This one is a woman with two mouths lying on the couch. And the other one is Kenneth Clark looking for Henry Moore recumbent figure. Next, we move on to elongation. Elongation is an art that refers to paintings that features figure that are painted with their forms elongated much more than the reality. Elongation means stretching. Okay, elongation is a form of abstract art that often depicts the stretched forms of people or object in nature. So among the artists who created elongation art was early 20th century artist Amedeo Modigliani, who is renowned for his use of elongation in portraits as well, and as more abstract paintings. Some other artists known for using elongation in their paintings are Modern African, Ernie Barnes, and so on and so forth. So let's move on to this one. We have Madonna of the Long Neck by Parmigiano. Madonna with the long neck is a typical of Parmigiano's later work. So which was defined by unusual spatial compositions and elongated figures. So makita nyo dito, elongated yung kanyang neck, ang kanyang hands. So, sabi nga, the elongation is to make her appear more elegant and graceful. So, itong painting na to is also known as Madonna in Child with Angels and Saint Jerome, but earned the name Madonna with the long neck because of the curious length of Madonna's swan-like neck. So, yeah. Yan yung one example of elongation. Makita nyo rin dito yung baby medyo elongated din. Next, we move on to The Resurrection by El Greco. So, sabi nga, it stands out as a work ahead of its time. So, dramatically elongated figures, bold colors, and loose brush strokes were considered somewhat odd in Baroque period in which it was painted. But tulad nung Madonna, itong Resurrection is considered spiritual expression to be more important than public opinion. And it was his way that he has developed a unique style that has allowed him to be regarded as one of the great geniuses of Western art. So, minsan ganun eh. Minsan pag natatakot ka na gumawa ng isang bagay, titigil ka na. Pero itong mga artists na to, kahit nung sa panahon nila, their paintings might be offensive or immoral. Makikita niyo yan sa later paintings na judge sila na yung mga paintings nila immoral or nakaka-offend. But they did not stop. So, yun, naging one of the great geniuses of Western art sila. Naging father of painters and so on and so forth. So, that proves only that you should not be afraid to be unique in your own way. And you should not be afraid to showcase your talent. Okay, next, let's move on to mangling. So, mangling, it is not commonly used way of presenting an abstract subject, but there are few artists who use subject or objects which are cut, lacerated, mutilated, torn, hacked, or disfigured. So, makikita nyo naman dito, may punit dito sa side. So, hindi siya masyadong ginagamit, pero ang ibig sabihin lang ng mangling is yun, cut, lacerated, and so on and so forth. Move on to Cubism. So, ito yung nag-remain as a major source of inspiration for many artists today. So, yan, Cubism. So, Cubism marked a major turning point in the whole evolution of modernist art. So, Cubism, it is characterized by the use of geometric shapes and planes. So, sabi nga dito, the Cubist painters rejected the inherited concept that art copy nature, or that artists should adopt the traditional techniques of perspective, modeling, and foreshortening. So, they dismantled traditional perspective and modeling in the round in order to emphasize the two-dimensional picture plane. So they reduce the fractured objects into geometric forms and then realign these within a shallow relief-like space. Next, so this painting, the Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, was painted in 1907 and the most famous example of Cubism painting. So in this painting, Picasso abandoned all form of representation of traditional art. Okay, so when it was first exhibited in 1916, the painting was regarded as immoral. So yun yung sinasabi ko kanina. But they did not stop. So, see? Naging one of the most famous Cubism painting na siya ngayon. Noon, it is regarded as immoral, di ba? So, next, we have the painting presents us with an uncomfortable mosaic of angular and overlapping fragments of 5 female nudes, at least 2 of whom stare provocatively at the viewer. Its cubist features combine powerfully with its violent forms and animalistic mask to both shock and challenge the viewer. So, dito sa abstraction, nililive ng artist yung, ang tawag doon, yung karapatan natin na to think of our own definition of their art. So, parang sinasabi nila, bahala na ang viewer ko, ano makikita nila dito, kung ano mababasa nila dito. Yun ang nangyari sa abstraction. Next, we have types of cubism. Number 1, we have analytical cubism. So, it is the use of rudimentary shapes. Rudimentary means basic. Basic shapes, overlapping planes to depict the separate forms of the subject in a painting. So, it refers to real objects in terms of identifiable details that become, through repetitive use, signs or clues that indicate the idea of the object. So, it is considered to be a more structured and monochromatic approach than that of synthetic cubism. So, an example of these is a portrait of Henry Canwiller. This is considered to be one of the best examples of this stage of cubism. So, a great desire to penetrate into the inner nature of three-dimensional object to comprehend the essence of space which it occupies, as well as the space within limits of which it is situated, brought by a closer analysis to life, making all the familiar surface contours of an object deprived of their usual opacity. So, this one is a painting by Picasso. So, makikita nyo, portrait siya ni Henry Canwiller, pero nalilive sa viewer kung paano natin i-interpret yan. So, yeah, let's move on to synthetic cubism. So, it became a popular style of artwork that includes characteristic like simple shapes, bright colors, and little to no depth. So, dito rin sa synthetic cubism, dito nag-exist yung birth of collage art, in which real objects were incorporated into the painting. So, itong mga kinds of art na to, mahal daw to. Yun ang pagkarinig ko. Kasi, ginamitan talaga siya ng real objects. Alam niyo naman ang collage, di ba? So, in 1912, Picasso creates the work of still life with chair canning. So, he inserts an oilcloth with a pattern that stimulates bars of the chair and the oval composition of the painting. So, it's a frame of the picture. So, the prototype of already made experiments of the 20th century was created. Let's move on to abstract expression. So, Leo Tolstoy is known to be the father of abstract expressionism. So, his expression theory, sabi nga dito, art elicits and provokes emotion of the viewer. So, ito yung kaninang sinasabi ko na Tolstoy believed that the role of the artist was to provide the viewer with something that would bring out these effects. So, abstract expressionism achieves this by letting the medium and composition to communicate for itself. So, artists like Pollock believed that it was the viewer, not the artist, who defines and interprets the meaning of abstract expressionist artwork. Thus, there is no relevance on what artist thinks or conveys while producing the work. Although may mga side meanings sila on why they would create such art, pero they leave us the parang the right to interpret their art subject, to define their art. Okay, so abstract expressionism is an artistic movement in the mid 20th century comprising diverse styles and techniques and emphasizing especially an artist's liberty to convey attitudes and emotions through non-traditional and usually non-representational means. So there are two styles of abstract expressionism, and that is action and passive. So actions such as Jackson Pollock and Willem de Kooning focus on an intensely expressive style of gestural painting. Now, what is gestural painting? Ang gestural is parang exaggerated the motions ng hand. Gestures sa pagpipaint nila. And the more passive is, this is more concerned with reflection and mood. So sabi nga dito, action painting is characterized by a loose, rapid, dynamic, or forceful handling of paint and sweeping or slashing brushstrokes and in techniques partially dictated by chance such as dripping or spilling the paint directly onto the canvas. Alam ko nakakita na kayo ng mga paintings and alam ko nakakita na rin kayo ng ganito. Na at the first glance, you would think na what was happening dun sa painting kasi there were splashes, there were drippings, and so on and so forth. And very forceful yung pagbrush, mga strokes ng brushes. Pero, yun nga, tinatawag nga siyang abstract expressionism. Naiiwan sa viewer kung paano mo i-interpret yung kanilang art. So, ibig sabihin ng action is the forceful handling of paint. So, Pollock had created his first drip painting in 1947. So, the product of a radical new approach to paint handling. So, with Autumn Rhythm, made in October 1950, the artist at the height of powers. And in this, non-representational picture-tinned paint was applied to unprimed, unstretched canvas that lay flat on the floor rather than propped on an easel. So, yan nilagyan ng mga flicker, splash, mga drizzle, mga ganyan, so on and so forth. So, marami silang ginagamit on their paintings. Marami silang ginagamit na knives, trowels, may mga, may mga ginagamit sila, mga spatula, mga ganyan. So, this one, color-filled painting marks a major development in abstract painting since it was the first style to resolutely avoid the suggestion of a form or mass standing out of background. So, instead, figure and ground are one. So, in the space of the picture conceived as field seems to spread out beyond the edges of the canvas. So, sabi dito, although Rothko never considered himself as a color-filled painter, his signature approach, balancing large proportion of wash colors, matches up to critics' understanding of the style. So, ang style kasi ni Rothko is, ang sa kanya, sabi niya na colors have emotions. So, colors evoke emotions. So, sabi nga dito, he believed his fields of color were spiritual planes that could tap into our most basic human emotions. So, ganun niya nilulook up ang colors. So, sabi dito, he considered color to be a mere instrument that serve a greater purpose. So, therefore, each of Rothko's words was intended to evoke different meanings depending on the viewer. So, in the time, number 2, green, red, blue was made. So, Rothko was still using lighter tones. But as more Years passed, and Rothko's mental health increasingly declined. His color fields were constituted by somber blacks, blues, and grays. So, nakaapekto ang kanyang mental health sa kanyang mga paintings.